Hello and welcome to the Dance Festival Munich. My name is Simone Schulte and I have the pleasure to talk today with Ceren Oran, the choreographer of the piece The Urge. We just had the premiere of this piece digitally and live in 3 cities actually, in Munich, in Cologne and in Berlin. And I'm very happy that we can be here now live and talk a little bit about it. So, Ceren, this is the second time you are here in the dance festival.
Yeah.
You were already invited to show your piece, Who is Frau Trophäa, 2 years ago. And you work and live in Munich since 2015, and you have created more than 8 pieces right now. I was counting it. Also works for young audiences, and also you are touring extensively throughout the world. So I would like to talk about your work, The Urge. I was coming up to a quote from Anne-Therese de Keersmaeker in one of the interviews she did here, and she said that the pandemic hit the DNA of the dancers around the world. And I think this is also a little bit of the theme, how you came up with this work. This piece reminds us all of the physical experience in a collective crisis, because we all lived and still live under exceptional circumstances. And you said this work is the biggest artistic and choreographic experiment you did so far. So can you tell us how you personally felt during the lockdown and how this influenced your work, and how did you come up with this really exciting work?
It's well, I think personally I went through lots of ups and downs, as we all did, as everybody did. And it was very interesting to see when you're in communication with others over internet, through internet, to see the synchronizations of all those ups and downs, and these synchronizations of all those ups and downs. And the idea of Urge, came during, I think I started to think about around May 2020, which was already, I think, like 2-3 months later. Than the very first lockdown in March in Europe. For me, it was very interesting at some point to see how people are talking about this, because I was in the United States. I didn't plan to be there for the whole lockdown, but I just couldn't come back because of all the conditions and restrictions and flight situations. So I was talking with a lot of people on Skype, WhatsApp, Zoom, and whenever we talked, the first 15-20 minutes were about COVID crisis, of course. Like, so how is it in your country? How are you doing in States? How are you doing in Sweden? How are you in Turkey? How are you in Japan? So, and everybody had the same global crisis, maybe the biggest that we know so far. But then everybody's approach to it was different. And I heard people who doesn't believe in the virus in the beginning. I heard people who were super scared to go out and they isolated themselves completely. I heard people who were trying to ignore and deny the whole fact. I heard people saying that, okay, next month this will be over. So it was very, and of course I also had my own confusions about the whole thing. Then I really thought, wow, okay, this is really interesting. It's almost like a religion, I say, like that people either believe in or not. And in fact, it's a scientific fact. But because we know so less about it, it was very interesting. And then I thought, okay, that actually can be a very interesting choreographic structure. Like how we deal with one thing, but then how then the individuals can interpret that one thing to their own body. And that's, I think, when I started to think about the concept of the urge. And then, since we are all in this together, I also thought it would be actually amazing to amplify this, to do it simultaneously in different places. You know, it like my very first idea was to do it on different continents, actually, because I was also interested in this different time zones, how the body reacts, how the environment reacts, and how they can come together. And it's still my hope for the future for this piece. But yeah, then I started to think about what can be the essence of the choreography. Like, yes, of course, you can like have a unison and then solos, which was my first image, like choreographic image, like that I had in my mind. But then, what should be the ingredient to choreograph that? And then, of course, I had a lot of colleagues, I had a lot of friends, dancers, choreographers, musicians, who, as more that we were isolated and locked down, as more we were staying stuck in our houses, in our places, flats, then internet and the social media became a way of like sharing still our dances. And then I saw a lot of soulful, emotional improvisations where dancers were in their kitchen, where they were in their bedroom, cleaning one space in the living room, dancing there. So there were a lot of this, for me, naive and a very beautiful way of saying, COVID, you can't stop me. Like, I continue dancing. I can't go to the studio right now. I can't perform on the stage, but this is who I am. And social media became almost a stage as well for this exposition. And then I thought, okay, this can be a very, this is it. Like, these materials, these improvisations should be taken out of that limited spaces and danced out in squares, in open spaces, and like given this deserved place and space and the audience as well.
Wonderful.
So this was my, I think all these things came together to cook the concept of Urge, which was in August, I think I wrote the concept,
Great. And so how was the process of finding the dancers? Because you couldn't do a live audition and workshops, it was not possible. So how did you manage to find all these dancers also in for the performances in 3 different cities?
Yeah. Maybe I refer to what I wrote yesterday on social media, what you also said, why I call this whole process and the piece Urge not as a performance of mine or like my last piece, but my like biggest experiment, because it was an experiment from the beginning to the end. No know-hows that we know about producing a performance, about creating a choreography, was relevant for this process. From A to Z, we have to unlearn and relearn, find solutions, find ways of how to deal with that, and sadly also compromise a lot. Compromise a lot of artistic ideas, compromise a lot of production ideas. So it was, and it started with the audition. So yeah, I was hoping to go to all these 3 cities and like meeting with dancers, but of course it was not possible because of the November lockdown showed us things will get again a little bit dark. So in that case, because before the audition, I already had my choreographic partners, Mayan Reiter from Köln and Rotem Weissmann from Berlin. And we kind of brainstormed together how to do the audition well and how to reach the dancers so that they could reach us. Then we kind of thought about, I made an open call and then people applied to this open call. Then we made the first selection from after this open call. But then because I knew that we would work with videos and they will have to be dancers who would be fast learners and like being able to dance a synchronized material collectively. Actually, then I think at some point we decided to send them a material and then copy this in their room, dance this, like synchronize this all together, and then also improvise with it. So I could also see how they play with that material. So we basically ask them, we send them 2 videos of 30 seconds, and then they synchronize. They send me 2 videos, like synchronized and the interpreted version. Then I also organize a Zoom meeting, because for me, like, an audition process is not a one-way decision. Shouldn't be a one-person decision. I think it should be a mutualistic decision. Dancers also has to choose the process and the choreographer that they would work together with. So I was in this Zoom meeting explaining, like, what am I expecting from them, and what could they expect also from me. And then I said, like, send those videos only if you're interested in, only if you want to take this ride with me. And and then it was a super interesting moment of seeing all these people dancing the same material. It was just fascinating. Then we finalized like 15 dancers for each city. And the process of like rehearsals were also like super interesting, because we created the performance with the Munich dancers and the co-choreographers from Köln and Berlin in 11 days, actually. It was a short time, so that they could also go back to their cities and to show it to them. Why 11 days? Because we don't know. Once we start a process, I mean, I think it's a big luxury at the moment to have 6-8 weeks of research processes where we don't know if in the middle of the process everything's gonna shut down. So like, then I said, okay, we have to do this quick and good. So it was a very intensive process. Now, and then they went to Köln and Berlin, Mayan and Rotterdam, and they rehearsed there. And I made a very quick round last week to see the rehearsals there and to meet the dancers there. It was very interesting.
So it's exactly the same material which is performed simultaneously in Berlin and in Cologne, right?
Yes, I mean, I don't know if the audience members watched today, but the piece has three chapters, and the first chapter is about like 18 minutes, and there we start with just a simple, basic exposition of the original dancer's material. So we really try to embody that and to present what it was. And then we kind of transform that material, and that's really on the count, like perfectly put together as a one fixed choreography. And this is, this is danced in all the same cities together, with some, of course, like spices inside, I would say. But then there comes a drop, which is a reference for everybody differently. But for me, it's the time like where we were all obliged to stay still, and then with this unknown feelings of what's gonna come, what will happen to us, to our broken DNAs, will we be able to put it back together, you know? And then the end part is with the support of a fixed material, but improvised. There it falls apart, the synchronization in between, because this is, I think, what's happening right now.
Interesting.
Everybody is kind of trying to, put it together in their own ways, but I don't think we are managing it well yet.
Yeah, we come to this later. I think you already mentioned a lot of very interesting points, which I think are quite unique in this performance. And I think that this is a very contemporary document of the time right now. Because it represents kind of like a collective memory. Maybe like in 10 years, we will look back at a video, and we can then see, oh yeah, this is the way we felt, you know. So therefore, I feel this is really quite touching and also interesting to see this as such a document. And also, you mentioned it already at the end of the performance of the streaming. We can see the original videos from all the dancers from around the world, which also symbolizes the collective experience in a way. And I think this is it's quite a very, very rare insight. So at the moment, I'm reading the journal, the diary of Caroline Emke. She's a German author and journalist from Berlin, and she wrote a pandemic diary, and she started in March, actually 2020, the same time when you were thinking of constructing a piece. And she says, like, in what images and what formats will the pandemic be remembered? How and what will be remembered? And what do we deny? And what images become icons, maybe? I think this is quite interesting to think about the masks and all these things. And what stories will we tell as if they were true? So these were just parallels I was thinking when I was watching your piece. So we are still in the middle of the crisis. I want to ask you, how do you see the future of interpersonal interaction right now, of communication, and how will the images and stories you are experiencing right now influence your future work, if you can say it?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's or maybe which topics came up for you which are more relevant right now because you were going through this journey.
Yeah. Actually, I was asked this question in an interview. I think in January, around January. Like, what do I think how my work will be affected with the corona? And honestly, I don't think whatever I will say now will be relevant. I really have the feeling that we are going through a big transformation, not only as a choreographer, but as a human, in terms of relationships, in terms of, like just this like social distancing thing, and like how we are simply almost scared from each other. And like this, I think this is very strong for me. And also, like, of course, with the work, with all this, like, okay, now it's happening. No, not now, it's not happening. Now we do it like this. All these things is doing something to us. So we are, in my opinion, being traumatized big time. And like children, older people, us, artists. So there is a very deep transformation happening. I wish it would be a nice thing, because this was also a lot in the discussion, like the earth is breathing because of the, like that everything stopped, which is totally true. But so there is also probably a positive aspect to it. But I think in deep down, as individuals, we are going, like we are still being traumatized and we are still being transformed. So what will come out of this, I really can't see. Like when I was writing the concept in August, I was thinking, oh, like of course now the next 5 years will be all about Corona, and I was like also like constantly like, how to say, like I wasn't feeling very comfortable about like doing a first like post-pandemic piece, and like, okay, I mean you can give it a bit more time, but it's just too strong inside you, and you have this idea and you just want to do it. But now I'm thinking it's not post-pandemic at all, like
Right.
because the pandemic is still happening, and it's like it is here and still strongly restricting us, putting us away from our audiences, putting us away from each other. So, well, I don't think there will be a lot of happiness in my work in the future. I mean, if I can say it like this, like, because it's, or maybe something opposite. I don't know. It's very hard for me. It's what I do. I think more and more now. I really try to focus on the moment since 1 year, because I am a person who plans like the future and everything. And now I really try to. Okay, this is happening right now. Focus on this, and then don't think the future. Like it will come, and you will deal with it later. And maybe this is a positive thing. I don't know, but
Yeah. That seems good. Let's talk about the recognition of arts in society. Arts and culture were among the forgotten parts during this pandemic, during the first months, of course. And especially dancers suffered from isolation and from physical and social distancing, like we talked, and because they had no possibility to train and to share their work. And so besides your work, your current work, where you really put the finger into the wound, I think. What do you think, what role does or can the arts have, in your opinion, and how will the pandemic experience, maybe a change in society? I mean, before we talked about your personal view and your work, but do you think it will have traces in society which will affect us very intermediate?
Maybe, I mean, maybe I can, because like when I wanted to perform The Urge, I mean, it is still, we couldn't perform it today for a public, but hopefully that's the future of the piece. Because I thought it would be just cathartic to go out and dance in front of people,
Yes.
and basically to be just seen uncontrollably, and like to just like expose what we have at the moment inside us to them, because I have the experience with Husra Trofea, how actually contemporary dance can be accessible and touching and fascinating and contagious. I experienced this with other 15 amazing dancers during this 70 hours of dance performance. And so that's why for me, there was no way to put Urge on a stage. So that's why I wanted to go out to kind of create that fascination, that connection, that interaction as well with the public. Because I felt with Trofea that, I mean, of course, you can't change someone's life through what you are doing. But you can trigger emotions, you can trigger questions, you can make people feedback you from, you know, like in the public space, like you get the feedbacks from person who looks at you and leaves, or like who is there and who can't live for such a long time. And this range of feedback also feeds us very much. So this interaction was my first wish for this, for them and for us as well. Because, you know, you say like art is forgotten, which is completely true, but I question that actually. Like when pandemic started, for me, the first month, I must say, it was amazing. That was my personal dealing, for example, because all of a sudden, world stopped. And whenever I take holidays, for example, I always had this feeling like, okay, I'm missing something, I still need to work and everything. And when I knew that, okay, the world is stopping right now, there's nothing happening, I can also relax, and I can also just like listen to myself. And then, but then of course, it didn't stay there. It's kind of continued and then escalated and escalated. And at some point, I'm seeing all these people doing home office, still continuing what they are doing. Production is happening, like things started to roll. And then I realized, I was thinking, what kind of sense we make? Like, what is it that we are living for, actually? I mean, we define ourselves through what we do. And in that moment that this interaction with an audience, the encounter was gone, it was a huge emptiness for me. Like, I really couldn't hold on. None of the performances, none of the memories of the performing, it was really very intense. Very sad in a way, and I lost trust a little bit into myself, into work, into dancing, because I was still working, because you had to cancel performances, you had to let your performers know, and then like all this, like the bad side of our job was still there, but like no sense, and this was very heavy for me. And I don't know if the audience is also feeling this, that like. Because I know we make sense, I know we touch people, I know we move things, and not only as only dancers, like musicians, actors, theaters, like writers, like a lot, like all of us. And I wonder how the audience is also missing that sense.
Yes.
So this I don't know. Like I would love to actually have this conversation.
Yeah, you're right. We should ask an audience about this. I think it's interesting because all your work is really very much about interacting in a way. I feel so. Therefore, I can really feel there's a lot of pain in this process, of course, for you as an artist. And yeah, totally. So I think my last question would be a little bit lighter, and it's about the music because.
Okay.
I was looking through your works, through the works I know, and I saw that you always collaborate with really excellent musicians, and you always have a live musician on stage or with you. So I think that's also quite rare to have this really as an artistic decision. And also here in this piece, it's great. We have 3 saxophone player and we have this great score from Hussein. So I would like to ask you, in what kind of context does the music play a big role in your choreography, and why is it really so important for you? Even if you do a piece for children, you have a very avant-garde violinist with you, and if you do long durational pieces, you have all these really excellent musicians with you. So what does it mean for you?
I think I can't imagine dance without music. I love when I see performances in silence or like when it's really working. But somehow for me, music really pushes me. It pushed me since I was a baby. So that's why, like for me to be, in order to put images together, in order to be creative, and in order to have a layer of emotion, I need music. And to select music, existing music, which is sky's the limit, of course, is I think very specific. And to use a composed track on a performance, I always wondered the composer's perspective, how he or she would think about that me doing this. So I think the reason why I'm not doing that very often is because I'm interested in the interaction between me and the musician, therefore the movement and the music. So, and just like to create together the scene, the image, the emotion is very awarding for me, and it's very precious, I think, for every performance that I do. I mean, I am very lucky because of the sound painting projects and the sound painting community. I met through like the last 10 years with fantastic musicians, and luckily...
Maybe you can say something about sound painting because that's not so common.
It's a language, it's a sign language to create real-time compositions, and it was created as a musical language. That's why when I studied it, when I started to do this, I was basically taking all the workshops and classes with the musicians, and there I had an amazing network of really brilliant composers and musicians who has very different ideas about improvisation, but different ways of accessing to movement. And I think with all the people, all the musicians that I work with, they're all interested in movement and dance as well. And that's, I think, where we click very well. I mean, Hussein every again makes soundtracks or like pieces for theater, for dance since 15 years maybe, and he really knows the essence of he even created once a dance performance. I was dancing in it. Okay. He had the concept and he came with the like music. And in this piece, why Hussein's electronics and 3 woodwind players, like 1 flute player, and 2 saxophone players, because I wanted to, I think, like, since we are all in this together and we are doing it all in 3 cities, I wanted to amplify the individuality of each city, not only through the picture and the embodiment of the dancers, of the movement, but to work to also like have a little also push there with another sound, with another musical sound, with another musical soul. And it was interesting because I had the chance to rehearse with all the musicians and the team in Berlin as well. they are all three different souls, and they bring completely another layer to each city, which I think supports the idea of the piece very well. And I think the piece is, and it touches also to the dancers, because that's also very important. Like,
Yes.
it's not only about me and the musician, how we communicate, but it also does something to the dancer. And this I experienced in many, many pieces that I created, that the dancers are there for music so many times.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Okay, so I think we come to an end. So
Yeah.
I wish that this piece will be seen by very, very many people lively, because it really is a difference to watch this piece live. It kind of triggers you into the whole choreography and into this whole world. That was it for me. So I hope you can soon perform it on different places in different cities.
Yeah,
And
We too.
yeah.
Yeah, all the dancers. It was very
I
sad.
know.
It was very sad to make the decision 1 month, like 3 weeks ago. Okay, let's just do it streamed, no matter what the permission
Yeah.
situation will be. Yeah.
Yeah. But
I
now
hope
you did it.
Yes.
I mean, at least.
Yeah. You were there watching it, so
Okay, yeah.
we had at least one audience
Exactly.
member.
So thank you very much,
Thank
Ceren.
you. Thank you so much, and thank you for the invitation as well.
Right, thank you, and
Dance festival. Yeah.
have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.